Welcome to the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. I am so glad today to have with us Becca Hardin, who is, you are in charge of the Bay Economic Development Alliance.
That's correct.
And you have had a lot of wins lately, a lot of great things that are happening. By way of introduction, just a little background, you have a public relations degree and journalism degree. From Troy University. And sounds like you're from the Tuscaloosa area originally. I don't know how many people actually know that.
Yeah.
You're married with 2 daughters.
Yep.
What ages are your daughters? Am I allowed to ask that?
Yeah, absolutely. 27 and 25.
Okay.
Yeah, they're grown.
I love to throw out random facts that people may not know. It kind of humanizes you a little bit. You're a competitor. One of the things that makes you so good at what you do is that there's a competitive edge there. You played a little college sports, right?
Yeah, played basketball at Troy, and they recruited me to go there and play ball. I always thought I'd go back and graduate from the University of Alabama, being from Tuscaloosa. You know, I still bleed crimson. But I got to Troy, and it was close to Panama City and the beach, and started having a really good time and stayed there all 4 years and graduated there.
So, off topic already, but did you travel down here to the beaches some, even after college and all? I mean, I know
Matter of fact, the reason that I was even lucky enough to get this job is that I stalked the guy before me and said, help me find a job near some blue water. Because we want to eventually retire on the coast. And a couple of weeks, this was at an international air show. I had that conversation with him, and a couple of weeks later, he called me up and he said, "Would you be interested in my job?" And I said, "Well, I didn't mean for you to leave." And,
right.
He said, "Well, I've got another opportunity, and I think you'd be a great fit for Panama City and Bay County." So that's how I ended up here, because I was very familiar with the area, and my husband and I wanted to end up the end of our careers in this part of the Panhandle. So I was very blessed to be able to have this opportunity.
Well, we probably have some listeners that don't know what it means to be in charge of the Bay Economic Development Alliance, and so I want to kind of give you a chance to explain that to some of us. What do you do?
Well, bottom line is that we work with the leadership in the Bay County to help bring new companies and help existing companies grow. Our mission is 2 things. We want to help generate good jobs for the citizens that live in Bay County, and we want to bring money to Bay County. When these companies decide to bring operations here, it's a large capital investment, and there's a spin-off ripple effect to our economy when we are successful in bringing these primary advanced manufacturing jobs or distribution jobs or port-related jobs. You see more in commercial, you see more money in banks, you see more families coming to town. So if we're successful in bringing in primary jobs, it really is an economic ripple effect in a positive manner for the whole economy.
That's awesome. I know that before we, toward the end, we're going to talk about some of the achievements, some of the great successes you guys have had, and really I think momentum that's building, because I think it's imperative for people to know that there are so many, like I'm seeing as I'm having these conversations with different community leaders, just how closely together the municipalities are having to work, and the business folks are working, even with government entities, to make it happen. And you kind of end up being a collaborator in a way.
That's a great word, but the word that I use is I'm the chief cat herder.
Okay. I
herd the cats and make sure that all the cats are going in the right direction so that we can get the main cat over the finish line.
Well, and I would, as you go and seek to recruit, these businesses to come, I would assume if they come into a community and are talking about bringing their family here and the cats are fighting, that is a bad signal.
Yeah, no, I've had an opportunity to work in other communities, and I've said this publicly before. I've never been in a community that has the attitude of wanting to succeed like Bay County does. And it's not just elected officials. It is a true public-private partnership. When we bring companies here and they're looking at sites and considering putting an operation here, it is a true team effort. I just kind of serve as the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
When we bring a company here for a site visit, they want to see the site or the building that they're looking at, but they also want to meet our county manager, our county commissioners. They want to go see the college. They want to go to Florida State. They want to go to Haney. They want to meet with Career Source. They want to drive our neighborhoods and say, where are your churches? Where would I take my family to church? Where do I go to get my driver's license? So it's funny. I tell people, the key leadership in this community, they still take my phone call because we may get a call today saying, okay, we've got the president of the company coming in at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I am not kidding you, when we have that situation, the key leaders in this community that we need as part of our A team drop everything and are prepared for a prospect visit, because that's our way to showcase our community. And I'm a true believer that if we ever get a company to Bay County sells itself. I mean, you just look around at the great assets that we have, and you can feel the energy. A lot has taken place. We've gone through a lot after the hurricane and then 2 years of lockdown with COVID, but we're just now hitting our stride. And we bring prospects into town all the time, and they're like, wow, y'all have it going on. So it's exciting for us to be able to play that part.
Well, I've been so excited over the last several years seeing some of the transitions that have happened. Love seeing the sports complex come to fruition, and felt like that we were really gaining momentum. Then the hurricane hit, but we kept rolling, and then the pandemic. But I don't think we've actually seen all cylinders hitting like they're going to.
I've predicted, and I was quoted in the newspaper, that over the next 5 to 10 years, this area is going to look totally different. And for those of us who get to experience that growth, it's going to be life-changing.
Why do you think it's going to look so different in the next 5 to 10? What do you think it's going to...
So here's some key game-changing projects, in my opinion, that we're going to experience. That, you can see things happening now. And these aren't in any order, but these are, in my opinion, things that are turning the tide for Bay County. The first one is the new student housing at Florida State University, Panama City. And that housing is available for Gulf Coast college students as well. It's at capacity. For the first time ever, our students don't have to worry about finding an apartment that's pretty expensive to rent in our community.
I want you to keep your list in your mind. That's the first of 7, right?
It's the first of many.
but what I was going to tell you is that we had a podcast that came. We're recording the next one today, right? This one will come out in a couple of weeks. But literally today, our podcast with the dean and associate dean is dropping, and we talk about Seminole Landing, and the impact that has in this area. So housing for college students locally is a big deal.
Yeah, and we've seen the student population rise already as a result of that. And that has been talked about for years, but it just could never happen until you get somebody like Randy Hanna and Irvin Clark here to take the bull by the horns and, okay, by God, we're going to make this happen. They did. And it'll forever, I mean, heck, who wouldn't want to live in Seminole Landings with an infinity pool right on the bay?
Well, they got the same view as the Holly Center. Everybody loves the Holly Center.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they had that. I'd still be in school. I'm thinking about taking 6 hours just so I can go hang out over there. So it's nice.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
What are some other projects that are going to change the shape of things?
The rebuild of Tyndall. As a matter of fact, I was had lunch with the city manager at Mexico Beach today. And it's exciting to see construction starting to rebuild Tyndall as the base of the future.
So it's really happening.
It's really happening. You'll see construction trailers up and construction starting. $5 billion that the federal government has allocated. What's going to be substantial is that we're getting 3 F-35 squadrons. So that equates to 2,000 to 3,000 military personnel and their families. So you add that to our population, and there's that's money in our community.
So help clear something up for me. Like, I'm a preacher, and so when we study in the Bible Jesus feeding the 5,000, that generally means that's just kind of how the way they count. It's 5,000 probably males, and then they had families, so it was way more probably than 5,000. You said 2,000 to 3,000
for the military personnel,
and then whatever families are a part of that multiplies that times however many.
Yeah.
So it's way more than 2,000 to 3,000.
So and that's going to be over a period of time. It's not going to be plop. Here's a bunch of people in your community, but
it's significant.
We know it's coming, and the Bay Defense Alliance. There's a lot of people in our community who are working very hard to get prepared for the growth of Tyndall. And that could have gone the other way after the hurricane. Mm-hmm. We are so lucky that they have funded the rebuild.
And I'm sure you're right. It could have gone the other way, and we're very blessed. And were you in the middle of some of that too? I don't.
I'm involved, but not like Glenn McDonald and Tom Neubauer and some of those folks.
Well, we'll give them credit because it's quite the blessing that they are going to rebuild it.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say Congressman Dunn. Oh, he carried the torch in Washington.
Well, and I know one of the themes that we wanted to hit is this idea of diversification of the economy.
Yeah.
And keeping that military presence and increasing it helps tremendously with having an economy that, yes, is certainly, it deals with those blue waters, but also the military side as well.
It's critical, and for what we do when we bring prospects to town, or even, we talk to different companies about locating businesses here, the first question used to be, I've been in this business a long time, how much money are you going to give me for incentives? That's not the first question anymore. The first question is, can you meet my workforce need? And we have 6 military bases in our part of Florida. And that for several of these aviation projects that we've worked, the answer was, we have 6 military bases in our communities. These people retire at a relatively early age. They work on airplanes for Air Force, Tyndall, Eglin. They want to stay in paradise. They're looking for these job opportunities. They know how to come to work. They don't do drugs. I mean, they've got a great work ethic. And we can answer that with the military and tapping into the military that are leaving and want to stay in our community. They have a great skill set. So that's usually, once we can answer that question, the second question is not as easy to answer, and that is, okay, well, where are they going to live? And, now after the hurricane, it's been a challenge for workforce housing to get back online. We see a lot of construction, but it's going to take a year or two maybe to get the inventory where it needs to be.
It's hard for so many of us that are on the outside looking in, just looking at all the apartments coming up and all the houses, but the scope of what's needed for the growth that's coming is pretty high.
Yeah, and we've got to get the market level again to where it is true workforce housing. The price points are still a little out of whack.
So talk to me. You said the college stuff is a big deal.
Tyndall.
The housing, Tyndall, the military rebuild's a big deal. What's another development that's going to change
everything that St. Joe is doing? I'll never forget this.
The way you say that, it's almost like they're doing a lot, but they're doing a lot.
They're doing a lot. I'll never forget after the hurricane. Our offices are on the Gulf Coast State College campus, and the roof on our building got peeled back like a tuna can and destroyed our offices. We lost everything. And so we were homeless for a while. I was just kind of riding around in my car trying to find internet. So I went to George Gonzalez, who was at the time was in Walton County. And I was like, George, we just need a couple of offices. And he's like, sure, come on. So he let us hang out at the St. Joe Company. And I was sitting in his conference room, and this was right after the hurricane, and it was a raw feeling. It was a painful feeling for everybody. And he's like, Becca, we're about to take a 5-year business plan and condense it into 2. And you look around and you see St. Joe signs everywhere. New hotels, new neighborhoods. I mean, I went to Mexico Beach this morning. Everything they're doing in Mexico Beach to help Mexico Beach rebuild. But the game-changing project, out of all the things that St. Joe's doing, is the Margaritaville Latitudes project. I mean, they have entitlements for more than 170,000 homes over the next 50 years. Mm-hmm. Now, put that in perspective. The population of Bay County is around 180,000 people. They have permits, well, almost permits, but they have entitlements for 170,000 homes in that West Bay sector. The first phase was 3,500 homes. They have a waiting list. They have a 2-year waiting list to even get in that first phase.
That's hard to put in perspective. Well,
and it was just a lot. People have no idea. The FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, that project is so big. FDOT is realigning a state highway, 388, and 4-laning it to dead end into Latitudes.
Right. It's
they
crazy.
Don't do that.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And it's a big deal for our airport because people that are active retirement age, they want to do two things. They want to play golf or they want to travel. And they can be at our airport in like 4 minutes when that road is complete. But as a result of everything that's planned with Margaritaville Latitude, that led to another game-changing project, and that's the joint venture partnership with the St. Joe Company, Tallahassee Medical, and Florida State University Medical Research School.
I think this one's brilliant, by the way.
And
the demographic of having so many retired folks moving here in the coming years is going to create a medical opportunity for those of us that are already in Bay County.
Absolutely. And you know, there was already some deficiency with medical services on that end of Bay County. Mm-hmm. So that definitely is a need that we have. And the cool thing about that is it's going to be a teaching hospital. So there'll be a lot of FSU medical students there, you know, bringing young people to our community.
And this is something that's happening.
It is happening. Yeah, we had actually at our monthly investor meeting that we have with the EDA, we had the vice president from Tallahassee Medical come and give us a briefing of it, and it'll be phased, obviously starting with a medical office building, but eventually they will have a 500-bed hospital at that site. 500 beds.
So if I'm making connections, and tell me if I'm connecting dots that don't connect, but if we've got students that are moving to Bay County and are going to be trained and go to college and learn medical at Bay County or in Bay County through FSU, I would assume they have to learn some of that if they're going to train at a research hospital that's going to be on the beach.
Yeah.
Which is also going to be part of the project where all these 170,000 homes are being built.
That's right.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't think my comment of how much things are going to change in the next 5 or 10 years is out of context.
It's not.
And then, so another area of growth is downtown. And another St. Joe project. They are building, you can see it's going vertical, the Marina Hotel, that'll have a really nice restaurant overlooking the water. And then the new Civic Center, which is not going to be called the Civic Center, Performing Arts Center. Mm-hmm. And we mentioned earlier that if there is one thing that Bay County needs, it is a stronger, richer arts. You know, music, theater, orchestra. It's that is an aspect of our community that could really use a boost.
As the population grows, it's natural for many of those things to come, right?
It is. It is.
And the population seems to be growing rather dramatically.
Yeah, it is. And another dynamic, we're seeing people that had to leave because of the hurricane coming back. Right. They want to come home, they're coming home. We long term have got to think about the infrastructure to support all this growth, i.e. highway traffic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which they've been working on for a long time.
Yeah, they have.
I've got so many questions I want to ask you. I also want to know what the rest of the projects are. But let me throw this out there, because one of the questions I get a lot is infrastructure.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a catch-22, because on the one hand we want the infrastructure, but we don't want the inconvenience of the infrastructure coming. And I don't know if it's fair for it to be that way.
Yeah.
But we got in 390, it's a road out here in front of us that's being 6-lane that was 2-lane. Now it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
But they're literally making a lot of progress in some sections of that. And on the other side, we've got Jinx Avenue that they've almost finished the 4-lane on it. It's all the orange barrels don't make it convenient, but it's going to be so nice.
The pain will be worth it.
Right.
To have the gain, the pain will be worth it.
Well, and one of the places that I think this matters, we shared. I grew up in Panama City, and I remember taking an economics course in high school at Mosley, and they told me one of the things that had prohibited the growth more in Bay County back in the 90s, up until that time, was we weren't connected to the interstate. And over the last probably 10 or 15 years, we have, whether it's hurricane evacuation routes or whatever you want to call it, we've watched roads like 79, 331's got a lot of attention, 231's gotten a lot of, and so it looks like, and this may draw us into one of the real projects that you guys have, big victories you've just had, but when you start looking at things like the airport, which has that big long runway, and you look at highways now where you can ride 65 miles an hour and big trucks can come in, I guess 18-wheelers.
Yeah.
We got rail, the port seems to be growing. All those things together mean that larger companies, bigger employers will actually look at us now.
Yeah, and we're seeing evidence of that. You mentioned it. We just had 2 recent announcements that are a direct result of what you're talking about.
I mean, are we in a game now that we wouldn't have been in 20 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but it would have never happened without the visionary leadership of the people in this community, and that's been going on way before I came here. Like I said before, I'm just trying to keep the cats herded in the right direction, but none of that can happen without leadership and positive leadership and everybody working together to do great things for the community. And I'll tell you an example of that. We had a prospect in it was probably a couple months ago now, and we had the C-suite team, CEO, COO, CFO of this company. It was a manufacturing company from a different state, and we did the dog and pony show. They came to town. They were looking at a build-to-suit site. They met with the county officials. They met with Dr. John Holnick at the college. They met with Dean Randy Hanna at Florida State. Our last visit that day was at Haney Technical College because they wanted to see the welding program and some other manufacturing type programs. And at the end of the day in the visit, the CEO pulled me aside and was like, "Do y'all have a script?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Every single meeting that we've been in your county, you all have said the exact same thing. It's like you're reading it from a script." And I laughed. I said, "No, that's just how we feel. And we are all passionate about wanting to make great things happen in Bay County. And so we are super hyper focused on making Bay County great."
One of the phrases that I've heard and I like in recent years is that a rising tide floats all boats. And the kind of concept that you're describing is it's the same concept, because it's not that if they win, then that means I can't. As a community, we recognize that we can all win together.
Yeah. A great example of that is Eastern Shipbuilding. I mean, look what, they just got this monster.
That's kind of a game-changing kind of project, too, isn't it?
That's on my list.
Okay. If I didn't keep interrupting.
You didn't let me finish my list.
Well, tell me about Eastern Shipbuilding, since that is one of those projects that's going to change the landscape.
Eastern, and they're a homegrown company. And, they competed for this Coast Guard cutter contract, $10 billion contract. And it was a true David and Goliath story. I mean, they competed against monster shipbuilders like Bath Ironworks. And their little David, homegrown Panama City.
I love the biblical illustration.
company, and they took the stone out and knocked him in the eye. And they won the contract. But they're eventually, and they're already in the process of hiring 1,000 people. And, our community has had to rally around them to, beef up the welding school at Haney and get super creative and trying to help them recruit people, because they have to ramp up very quickly to satisfy that contract. But they're super supportive of our efforts in the economic development world. They're an investor in our organization, and they want to see us successful in bringing other companies to fruition as well.
Becca, a project of that size, I mean, when I think one of the slower areas it seems to rebuild has been, I mean, obviously the hurricane didn't touch the beach like it did the rest of the community. I mean, they got touched certain parts. But when you look at how devastated, because that was closer to the eye, between the military contract, which is the $5 billion for the Air Base of the Future, and then when you start talking about Eastern Shipbuilding, I thought that was 5. Is that actually a $10 billion contract now?
10 for all of it.
But that's going to change the shape, because it's going to bring so many other things to the community. It's not just those jobs; it's all the other amenities that have to be there.
That's right.
I mean, to feed those guys, I guess, when they're going and coming to work, and put those kids in school, right? I
mean, the DeCernia family, they're amazing. After the hurricane, most of their big work is done in Allenton. And after the hurricane, a lot of their employees, most of their employees lost their homes. And they built like a makeshift community near the shipyard and brought a bunch of trailers in to accommodate, housing for their employees.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. Who would do that?
Well, I know that they've blessed our community in a significant way. That's a story I'm glad you actually shared. That's good news. I'm glad you shared that out loud.
That is good news.
Talk to me a little. Well, hang on a second. I could talk about some wins here, but I stopped you on your list. You've got...
those are the main. I covered them. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I wanted to get Eastern in there before I forgot.
And rightly so, rightly so. Tell me about Central Millennium Incorporated.
Yeah.
They do transformers, right?
Yeah. They their biggest customer is Florida Power and Light, as a result of them choosing Bay County for their expansion opportunity. They're going to be getting more work from Florida Power and Light. But they manufacture transformers for all power companies. They have a big, they're headquartered in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and they have about 500 employees in 4 different facilities in Pine Bluff, and just wanted to grow in a different area. They're going to keep everything in Pine Bluff, which is great because those employees will still have a job. So it's not like we poached from another state and we're going to hurt them.
They're
just expanding here. And we had an existing facility at our airport campus in Venture Crossings that was a perfect fit for them, and just small modifications for them to be able to get up and running. And they've announced they're going to create 200 new jobs. And I believe that's just the tip, phase 1. They'll end up growing here like they did in Arkansas as well.
Now, as a part of that, I think that's an example of how this process works. Sometimes you never know where the lead's going to come from for a project.
Yeah, that was a different one because we work with Enterprise Florida, which is our state partner. We also have a regional entity called Florida's Great Northwest, which covers communities from Pensacola almost to Tallahassee. And we work very closely with Jennifer Conley and her team on that. It was actually their lead. It was a cold call. Their research guy just emailed the president of the company, and he bit the bait. and so, okay, well, I'll come to your community. And he visited several communities, and we were the last one on the list.
Right.
And we had that awesome building, and we were able to offer them a attractive package, and we won the deal.
Well, I may have reached out to Jennifer to ask about you, because I've heard so much good about what you've done, and I know she was involved with Gulf Power before taking the current role that she has with Florida's Great Northwest. And here's what she said, because it's good to know what people sometimes say about the person that's in your role. She says that you have been not just a dear friend, but at a regional level, you have been helping the development in the Bay County area, and that you know when to lean on your resources, how to build up and encourage those around you. And then she's also talked tremendously about your work ethic and your level of determination. I think that goes back to your competitiveness.
Probably so.
But what I think is what I've learned in the process, Becca, and I just didn't know this. And I think I've got listeners, and probably some of my folks are senior adults that are at home watching us on YouTube. I mean, honestly, and they wouldn't know how this stuff works. And so we got state level partners that help with economic development. There's a federal piece to the economic development as we recruit internationals, and then locally you are the Bay County side to that, and so y'all all work together.
And then the region, Jennifer's the region,
and Jennifer's the regional piece.
Yeah. And there are times when we compete against each other in the region, but there are also times that we will go on a marketing trip together. So it's friendly competition, and if Nathan Sparks in Okaloosa County has a win, we cheer. Same for Pensacola, Santa Rosa, wherever.
That's how it should be. Washington
County, wherever, because we represent a region. So it's at times we're competitors, at times we're teammates.
Well, and a lot of times it takes regional resources to pull it off. I would assume a project like what you're talking about with the Discernias and Eastern Shipbuilding, they're going to have to pull from multiple counties, probably.
Yeah, they've got a big presence in Gulf County.
Yeah,
and just opened operation over there. So that is a great example of a multi-county project.
Well, tell me about FedEx.
FedEx.
That's another big win.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about code names earlier, and how we came up with the name. That project was driven by a developer who works for FedEx and does these projects all over the U.S. And we gave it the code name Project Rocket, because it was happening so fast. It's like we submitted our certified site that the port owns in the intermodal distribution center.
I wonder why it was Project Rocket.
And it was. I mean, it was like so fast. I mean, usually, tell people that what we do is a marathon, not a sprint. You can work a project for years. But this was and the developer was super demanding, and he was wearing us out, quite frankly. And he was like, we got a deadline, we got decisions, blah, 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 you're not working fast enough. I mean, he was bloodying my nose big time. And it was right when Alex King took the job as the new port executive director. And this is a big deal. I mean, they're building a 250,000 square foot state-of-the-art regional distribution center here. And Alex was like, he took on that project and he was a champ. And he pushed it across the finish line, but he was like, man, why couldn't my first project have been like a 7-Eleven? Why did it have to be a FedEx monster project, $55 million project? But he did a great job, and the Port Authority board was 100% behind us, and it was a very competitive project. That could have gone anywhere, and we were able to give them a nice site. We didn't give it to them; we sold them a nice site, and they were very happy. If you go out there now, you see there's like 300 trucks a day bringing dirt out there to build the site.
And that's at the port.
No,
No?
It's at the port-owned intermodal distribution center, which is on Highway 231.
Okay.
It's an inland port. And
It's up near the old incinerator, right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's connected to the original industrial park for Bay County.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's still got sites in there that we actively market today.
And probably its proximity to 231 with all the road and that kind of
Well,
stuff.
that's the key. I mean, it's right there on 231. It takes, from that site, it takes you 15 minutes to get to 10, 20 minutes to get to I-10.
I know that we've continued to see the growth at the airport. I know a lot of that has been folks coming in to visit Bay County, but a lot of what that has benefited us with is the ability with that big runway to do more commercial type industry stuff.
Yeah.
Are we seeing growth that way?
Well, we don't have vertical construction going up yet, but we're close. And I really feel that once we can get something under construction, MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul company, or aircraft parts manufacturer, it'll be a domino effect.
Tell me, what does that mean? You don't have vertical construction yet? You hadn't.
We haven't landed a project that needs to build a hangar there yet.
But the space is there to do it.
The space is there, and we have...
And the runway's there.
We have sites, and the airport authority just invested almost $8 million to put a concrete apron next to the sites. So now we can truly say we have sites that are ready that have access to the runway. See, before we didn't have all that infrastructure there. But now when I go to these aviation shows around the world, I can pull out a picture and say, we can build you a hangar right there and be ready in 6 months.
So as you talk about traveling around the world, there was a certification that we have in Bay County that separates us when you go off and you say, hey, I'm from Bay County, and here's who we are, and here's what we have to offer. It's called a Foreign Direct Investment Certification.
Right.
You guys didn't sit on your laurels during the pandemic when you couldn't travel. You worked hard and increased your toolbox a little bit. Tell me about that certification.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. It's Foreign Direct Investment Certification, and it's really just another tool that we can put in our toolbox. We worked with a European site selection consulting firm that brings us leads. They bring us really good project leads. So they do this certification for communities throughout the United States, and it's a very comprehensive process. We have to fill out a very extensive community questionnaire, which forced us to update all of our information. Then they come in and they do a mock prospect visit, meet with all of our leadership, just like a real project. And then they do a half-day leadership seminar on how to deal with different cultures, the Asian culture, European culture, whatever you're dealing with. And at the end of that, you get a Foreign Direct Investment Certification, nice diploma to put. It's actually on the wall of the Bay County Commission offices. And when I go to visit companies around the world, I can say, we have this FDI certification. Our community has been trained on how to make sure that you as an international company, you're coming into Bay County, and we know how to make you successful. We're the first and only community in the entire state of Florida that has this certification.
First and only one.
And there are 10 other communities throughout the United States that have it. We scored the highest.
That's great.
Competitive.
No, competitive matters.
We don't only just have it; we were the best.
Listen, on the workforce side, I reached out to Kim Bodine as well.
Yeah, one of my best friends.
Well, and she's heavily involved with CareerSource. Well, she's the CEO, I think.
Yeah.
And so when we start talking about getting the labor force and getting jobs, bringing jobs here, workforce matters, but we've seen some real improvements in that in recent days, which is great. but she described you as a force of nature. I mean, she said, I mean, again, I heard competitive. I heard just the willingness to collaborate. And I know a couple of y'all work down there together a lot, but I just want to compliment you on your willingness to work with the different parties involved. In my world, again, I'm a pastor, so I think about ambassadors and think about the passage in 2 Corinthians where talks about being ambassadors for Christ. Well, you're kind of an ambassador for Bay County.
Yes.
And so you go away and represent us other places, but then when you talk about getting that lead and then you get the call and you got to call the different pieces to the table so that the C team, I think is what you call it.
A-team.
Well, yeah, but
the
CEO, the CFO,
the
C-suite.
C-suite, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they bring the company brings all their important people here, you as the ambassador saying, hey, now let me show you, and it's kind of this group that works together, and it's kind of neat to see how all that works.
Yeah.
You've been here now, I think you said, did you say 7 years?
7 years.
During that time, you have seen a lot of changes, not only through the pandemic and the hurricane, but you've literally seen kind of a push towards a more family-oriented community and beach, a real fun beach, if you will. And I would even say, as a member of the community that's been here a long time, I'm thrilled with how much the quality of life seems to have improved over that period. Does that make it better and easier to recruit businesses?
It does. When I first came down here, we were still having issues with spring break, and the leadership recognized that and did something about it. And it totally changed the perception of people that outside our community and wanting to bring businesses here. It's day and night what it was when I first started, and it's all because the leadership took measures in their own hands to turn the tide, per se, to make this more of a family-friendly destination. And that took a lot of guts, because that wasn't an easy thing to do, but it absolutely impacted everything that we do in trying to showcase Panama City and Bay County.
One of the things we like to say at our church is that the best is yet to come.
Yeah.
And I think in Bay County, it is a fair statement that we've got some really good days moving forward. We are, if there's an upside, I know some struggle with more people coming to the area, but I'm just going to tell you, you cannot get all the other amenities that come and that the opportunities, whether it's cultural stuff, athletic venues, etc., without some of that kind of growth. And so I appreciate what you're doing. I know many in the community are grateful for it. You've been a fascinating interview.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to listen close when I see you in the headlines talking about what new projects are out there, because I know that you know what you're talking about with so much of this stuff.
Well, we appreciate your support, and it's important for everyone in the community to think about having success, and so we're all moving in a positive direction.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Becca.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Please help us share this good news and change the conversation by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast.